What's going on, you guys? So I've been seeing some stuff, in the media as of, the last couple days, really, ever since the Shakur Stevenson performance, where you have analysts, boxing pundits, now saying, well, Shakur Stevenson deserves to be top 4 or 5 pound for pound now. And, honestly, that's very surprising to hear coming from certain media outlets. Dummies like Max Kellerman, Mike Coppinger, some of these UK idiots as well, that are now saying these things. It's surprising, and it's also kind of cool to hear. But on the same token, it's annoying still. Because here's what I think, man. I think Shakur Stevenson has now deserved to be the #1 pound for pound fighter. And they had a tough time giving that, title to Terrence Crawford, as being the pound for pound #1 fighter. Even though he did tremendous things, they still had a very tough time giving him that, pound for pound #1 spot. Like, certain media outlets didn't want to do it, right? And there's still even arguments in terms of, well, who was the best fighter of this generation? Was it Usyk or was it Crawford? And I think that argument's stupid as well. But here's my reasoning as to why Shakur Stevenson is #1 pound for pound, right? I'm just going to get to it. When you look at some of the guys they mentioned in front of him, Usyk, Inoue, Bam Rodriguez, Dimitri Bivol, right? Those 4 in particular, I've heard those names thrown in there before Shakur Stevenson, right? And I'll start with Usyk, man. I don't think Usyk has a name on his resume, right, that is as good or better than a Teofimo Lopez. And people are going to automatically say, well, Tyson Fury. What about Tyson Fury? Well, was Tyson Fury in his prime of his career? He wasn't. He fought Tyson Fury that was coming off of a Francis Ngannou, horrible performance where he got dropped and the fight went to decision, and it was a razor close decision. A lot of people thought Francis Ngannou beat Tyson Fury. And I want you guys to really think about that, right? Think about if Floyd Mayweather, even at the age of 40, when he fought McGregor, got dropped and the fight went to decision and it was a razor close decision. You guys would shit all over Floyd Mayweather. You guys would say, oh, Floyd Mayweather, he was never that good then. He clearly wasn't great if he really went tooth and nail with an MMA fighter and got dropped, right? We wouldn't hear the end of it, even at the age of 40, which Tyson Fury wasn't. He was an active world champion, right? That's the Tyson Fury that Alexander Usyk fought. And not to mention even that performance, right? He had 3 fights with Deontay Wilder, arguably the biggest puncher in the history of the sport. And the first fight, he dang near got killed. The second fight, he won with ease. And the third fight was an absolute war, which I think took years off of both guys' career. So when we say, oh, well, Usyk's #1, he beat Fury. He beat a fat, sloppy Fury coming off of an arguably lost to an MMA fighter in 3 wars with Deontay Wilder. And not to mention before that, he was on dope for years and like 500 pounds. So I don't view Tyson Fury in the same light as I view a Teofimo Lopez when Shakur fought him. Shakur fought him when he was 28 years old. He was an active champion. He was the lineal champion, right? And he was a lineal champion at 135, and he had all the belts. He was undisputed in my eyes. I don't care about the franchise title. I view Teofimo Lopez as undisputed. It's not his fault Lomachenko didn't want to fight Haney at the time, and they upgraded him to whatever title. I viewed Teofimo as the undisputed at 135, right? And then he beat the undisputed champion at 140 in the prime of his career when Shakur fought him, and he schooled him, right? And then you go on to Inoue, same thing. Who on Inoue's resume is as good or better than a Teofimo Lopez? Who? I mean, you could argue the best guy you could probably say, an old Noriso Donaire that got completely outboxed by Gilmore Rigondeaux, or you can say Stephen Fulton, which I don't know if he's even any better than an Oscar Valdez, type of caliber fighter, right? So he's been beaten up on a bunch of fart weights. I don't view him, or his resume in the same light as I do a Shakur Stevenson. I think this win alone against Teofimo puts him at number 1 over Usyk and Inoue, right? And Inoue's traveled up multiple weight classes now, and some people may say, well, you know, he's up so many weight classes, that's why. But the reality is this, like, Shakur's up 4 weight classes now. I think it's the same thing as Inoue, but Shakur's not getting dropped every other fight now, right? When have we really seen Shakur Stevenson hurt? We've seen Inoue with broken face bones, you know, getting put to the canvas multiple times by guys like Luis Neri and I don't remember the one Mexican dude's name he fought. That was actually a good competitive fight. I think he ended up getting him out of there, but it's not to the level of dominance as a Shakur Stevenson when you look at Naoya Inoue, right? With Bivol, I kind of have a hard time because I think he has beat some good quality guys. Like, obviously beating Artur Beterbiev is a tremendous feat, right? You know, he did lose, though. I thought he won the fight, but regardless, you know, he beat Beterbiev. He beat Canelo, who was coming off of undisputed reign at 168. So those are 2 great wins. I can't remember the Mexican dude's name that he's fighting, or that he fought and beat, that David Benavidez is fighting, but that dude really is completely overrated. But it's a good name to have on your resume for namesake. But he's only a champion in 1 division, right? I mean, it'd be different if he was a champion in multiple weight classes, but he's kind of in a spot where it's like you could go to bridgerweight or cruiserweight, you know, which I think he even mentioned he would be willing to do. You know, I think that's different then, you know. But the reason I would have Shakur Stevenson over a Dimitri Bivol is because I think skillfully, I think Shakur Stevenson's on another level, and he's accomplished world titles in multiple weight classes now, whereas Dimitri Bivol hasn't, right? And then with Bam, man, same thing with like Inoue. What guy on Bam's resume is as good or better than a Teofimo Lopez? You can't say anyone. And the biggest thing with these guys in these small weight classes is there's no stars there, right? Because no one cares about those weight classes. Nobody wants to see, you know, 2 guys laying 500 punches each and no one gets hurt. And I know Inoue and Bam, they get their guys out of there, but like, who are they fighting? You know what I mean? But I don't know, man. It kind of annoys me seeing these things because I view it as like rhetoric. You know, I don't think Usyk. Hey, keep in mind, I'm not trying to shit all over every single one of these dudes because they're all gonna be Hall of Fame fighters, right? But I'm just kind of keeping it a buck. And I get tired of seeing Usyk as, you know, the greatest heavyweight ever, you know, in those type of discussions. Like, Paulie Malignaggi glazes Alexander Usyk like no other, right? And he even says things like, people just get caught up in the nostalgic of the fighters, the heavyweights of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you know? And it's like, no, we don't get caught up in the nostalgic. We just look at those guys and match them up with the guys of the current era now. And there's no comparison. That era of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, those heavyweights were far greater than the ones we have now. Skillfully, you know, they fought each other. They're great. I can't say some of these guys now are great. I mean, Anthony Joshua, he lost to a fat Andy Ruiz, right? And that's another one that Usyk beat, right? And he's gotten stopped by Daniel Dubois now. Like, I just don't think Anthony Joshua is that great. I think he would get completely destroyed by guys like Lennox Lewis, Tyson, Holyfield, you name them. Riddick Bowe, Larry Holmes would box circles around him, in my opinion. You know, guys like that. Those are the great heavyweights, you know, of all time. And you could throw Usyk in there, but to say he's like the greatest, I think that's super far-fetched, man. Super far-fetched. I don't agree with that at all. And they don't even give... They even say Usyk's the best fighter of this generation, which he's not. You know, I get tired of hearing that argument. It's like, why do these guys have a tough time, you know, giving Crawford, you know, the best fighter of this generation or the #1 pound-for-pound spot? Why does there have to be some fart weight, you know, that's ahead of him because he fights a bunch of other fart weights, you know, multiple times a year that we never heard of, right? Or Usyk, he's fighting some UK dude with no heart who quit, right? I just don't get it. I really don't. Crawford's a 5-weight world champion, 3-time undisputed, you know, done things that nobody's done, jumped up multiple weight classes to fight the face of boxing and completely schooled him. What fight, you know, other than Daniel Dubois, right, has Alexander Usyk, you know, dominated in, right? Completely dominated. He didn't dominate against Tyson Fury. He didn't dominate against Anthony Joshua, because both of those fights, he had to run it back. There was rematches to both of those fights. I just don't view it as the best of this generation, and I don't view him as pound for pound number one. He's definitely top 5 pound for pound. You know, I'm not trying to say that. I just view Shakur Stevenson, you know, who's the fastest 4-weight world champion now, 2-time lineal champion. He should be the lineal champion at 135, but nobody in that division has nuts to fight him. So hopefully now that he beat Teofimo, you know, he's got some buzz behind him, that these guys are willing to step in the ring with him. But we'll see. But those are my thoughts, man. I have Shakur Stevenson pound for pound number one now that he's beat a guy like Shakur. And nobody can say, well, his resume is trash now. Well, he's got arguably a better win on his resume than anybody in the whole entire sport of boxing. So those are my thoughts, man. Let me know what you guys think. Am I being too harsh? Am I being too critical on some of these guys? Or, you know, I'm just kind of trying to say it is what it is, you know. You know, I don't want to try to bash in these guys because they're all great. They're all going to be Hall of Famers. But I just get tired of seeing, you know, all the people in the media glaze all over these dudes. It's really annoying. But let me know what you guys think, man. Hate, like, comment, subscribe.